Hey guys, welcome to the video. In this video we are going to create this form in React using Formik, Yup and TailwindCSS. So let's take a quick look at what we're going to be building. So we're going to build this form using Formik. We will have 4 input fields for name, email, password and confirm password. We will write custom input fields. We will also write a custom password field so we can toggle between the visibility of the password. We will also validate all of the input fields with appropriate validations, and we will style everything with Tailwind CSS. So with that said, let's get started. So let's go ahead and create a new React app. npx create app. I'm going to call this Formik demo. Okay, now that our React app is created, let's cd into it. Open the app in our text editor and let's start setting up Tailwind CSS. So let's head over to the documentation, installation guides. We will integrate with create react app, so let's click on create react app and install the dependencies. Okay, we need one more package to start using Tailwind CSS, so let's install Raco, which will help us override the configurations. And while that is being installed, we can go ahead with the guide. So what we need to do is inside this package.json we need to replace the scripts with the new commands. So head over to package.json, replace the 3 commands, and we need to create a Krakow config in our root folder. So in our root folder, let's create a file named krakow.config.js, paste the code in here, and initialize a tailwind config. Paste this into the terminal. What this will do is generate a tailwind config file, and in here I'm going to add a new color. So Tailwind CSS already has a bunch of colors that you can use. So these are all the colors that you can use, but just in case you want to add some additional colors, what you need to do is in the Tailwind config, inside the extend, we will extend colors, and you can give whatever name you want. I'm going to call this primary and give this a value. Going back to the installation guide, and now what we need to do is inside our index.css we will replace the existing CSS code with Tailwind utility classes, and make sure that index.css is imported in our index.js, and now we can start using Tailwind CSS. So let's go ahead and start our server. Okay, now that Tailwind CSS is set up, we can go ahead and build our form. So to start using Formik, we need to install the Formik. Head over to the docs, and if you scroll down a bit, you can see how we can install the Formik. I'm going to stop the server for now. Now, along with Formik, I will also install Yup, which we will use to validate the form. Restart the server. Okay, back to the documentation. If you scroll down a bit, you can see how we can use Formik to start building the form. So let's import Formik in our app.js. Delete everything inside the div and replace it with the Formik tag. We will copy everything inside the Formik tag and paste it in here. I'm not going to use the logo, so I will delete the import. Let's see how it looks. It's not showing any styles because TailwindCSS resets all of the styles. So let's go ahead and start styling. So I'm going to give this container a bg of primary. I want this to have a full height, so bg height height screen. I also want to display this as flex, and to center everything inside the div, I'll give this a class of justify center and items. So the color does not look exactly like this one, so let me go ahead and check the Tailwind config. 3 I added an extra 5, so this should be, oh no, this should be 4. Okay, now our background color looks right. So I will also give this form a class of bg white. Also give this a padding of around 8 maybe. And also give this a width of maybe around 520. So I'm going to delete everything inside the form tag for now, and maybe give this a heading, put a heading in here which will contain the text of sign up. Give some styling for the headings, text for Excel to make it larger, font bold, and text primary. Let's see how that will look. I'll also give this a alignment of text left. So yeah, so now let's go ahead and start building the input fields. So I'm going to write a custom input field. So I'll make a directory inside the src folder, custom input, and place the custom input inside the file custom input.js. So for now, let's just import React, create a component name custom input. For now I'm just going to display a text with custom input. Also export default custom input. Let's import our custom field into the app.js and place the okay. Now before moving on to making this custom field functional, I'm going to clean up the Formik tag for now. So we have 4 input fields: name, email, password and confirm password. So I will have to give some, so I'll declare some initial values for those fields. Email, password, and pass in the initial values into Formik. I will also remove the validate, so because we are going to validate using yep, and I'm also going to replace the onSubmit function with a new function handle submit, which we will declare up here. Handle submit, which will receive values, and I'm just going to log the values for now. Okay, let's also style our button quickly. So place the button here, give this a class name of w full, so it contains 100% of width. Give this a background color of primary, maybe padding of 4. Also give this a class of text white, and see how it looks. Okay, it looks like it needs some margin on the top, and T8, maybe 4 would be enough. Okay, now let's start building our input field. So in our input field we need to pass some props like name. This will be name, ID, name, label, and placeholder. So enter your full name, and inside our custom input field let's receive those props. I will restructure label and all the rest of the props as props. So to make a custom input field functional, we need to make use of a hook that Formik provides, so which is called use field. So let's see how we can use the field from the documentation. Let's import the use field, and the use field hook returns field, meta and helpers. So let's start so let's copy the use field hook, and I'm going to display the label conditionally, so only if the user passes the label we will display the label. So to do that what we can do is label and inside the label tag we will display the actual label HTML4, and here we will pass in either the props.id. If the props.id is not present, then we will use the props.name. And now we can pass in the input field. We will also display the error message here just beneath the input field. So props is not defined. We forgot to copy this part, so let's go ahead and paste it in here. Since we're not using form, let's delete these and everything inside here. And we're also not using the helpers, so let's delete it. Let's go ahead and check what our input field looks like. So it's not looking pretty at the moment, so let's go ahead and style it. So if we see in our finished project, we have the label, input field and errors placed on top of each other. So to do that, what I will do is, in our div, let's display this as flex and flex call. I'll also give this a text alignment of left. And now let's style our input field. Now I want this input field to have a border bottom, and I want the border to have a color of primary. See how that looks. Okay, now I don't want the ugly looking outline when we focus on the input, so I will disable focus outline. Focus outline none. But when I focus on the input field, I want the border to turn to a blue color. So to do that, what we can do is focus border maybe blue 500. Let's see how that looks. So when we focus on it, it's turning into blue. Okay, now let's add in some additional fields. Paste it 3 times. Name would be email, and inside the placeholder we will give in enter your email. Let's give this a name of password. Enter your password. Give this the name of confirm password. Okay, now since our input fields are closely placed on top of each other, so I'm going to wrap this with a div of class empty, maybe 8. Let's see how that looks. Okay, it's looking good. Now let's go ahead and make our password feel like the one that we have in our finished project. So to do that we need to display icons, and I'm going to use material icons, and we need to link the material icon in our HTML. So let's go to the public directory, and inside here open up the index.html and paste the link in here. So heading back to app.js. Now instead of using the same component, I will create a new component and call it password input.js. And to start out, let's copy everything inside the custom input and place it in here, and I will rename this to password input. In our app.js, I'll import password input, and since we are using password input, let's rename this. So it's not going to look like our finished project yet, because right now it looks just like the password custom input. So let's display a icon. So I'm going to use material icons. So to do that, let's head over to material icons and search for our icons. So the icon is called visibility. Once we've placed in the link in our HTML, we can use the icons. So if we check back here, our icons are displaying. So I want my icons to have the same color as the background. So to do that, I will give this a text of primary, and I will wrap the input field and icon around inside a div. Give this a class name of relative flex, and item set. I'm displaying this div as flex, and to center everything vertically, I will give this a class of items center. Now I'll also give this a span of class of absolute. Since I'm positioning it absolute to the div, I will make sure the input field has a full width, and place the icon on the right. Give this a class of right 0. Okay, now what we need to do is, when we click on the icon, we want our password field to have a type of text, and initially we have to pass a type of password. So right now it's text. So what we can do is, to do that, let's import use state and declare a new state. I'll call this type, and initially we want our password to have a type of password. So let's pass in the state here. And one thing that I noticed is, when we hover over the icons, we want the cursor to be a pointer. So let's do that. And I also don't want the user to be able to select the icon, so I will turn the select off. So now now when the user click on the icon, we should change the type of the password. So I'll give this a on click listener. When the user clicks on it, we will set the type from password to text. Let's see if it's working. Yes, it's working. Now when the password type is text, we want to display a different icon. So instead of visibility, we will display the visibility off. So let's copy this, and we will display the icons conditionally. So if the type is password, we will display this icon, and when the type is not password, we will display the other icon. And I'll copy the exact styling on this one as well. Also give this an on click listener, and when we click on it, we want the password type to be changed to password again. Okay, let's see if it's working. So yeah, when the type is text, it will be displayed as the visibility off, and when we click on it again, it will turn back to password. So our password field is functional as well. So now let's start with the validation. Let's go back to the app.js. To start validating the form, we will import hashtag as yep from yep, and we need to define a validation schema. We will define a new yep object, give the shape of the validation schema. So we will have 4 input fields. The name will be a string, and which will be required. When the user tries to submit the form without entering the name, we will display the error message. So right now I will just give this a error message required. Also do the same thing for email, password, and confirm password. So we also need to pass it inside the Formik. So validation schema equals validation schema. So let's try submitting the form. So when we click on submit, let's try refreshing. Now we're seeing our form. So I want my error messages to have a different style. So head back to the custom input field, and instead of error, I will give this a class of text red 500, and I'll also make this text a little bit smaller. So text XSM. Now our error is looking like an error message. So copy the same thing for password input field. Okay, now it looks like an error message. So on the validation schema, I will give some additional validations for email. I also want the email to be a proper email format. So give this a email, and when the email is not valid, we will give this error message of invalid email. Let's try submitting again, and when the email is not valid, it will display the error message. So gmail.com. When the email is valid, the error message will go away. Okay, on the password, I'll make sure that it has a minimum length of 8. Password too short. the password length reaches 8, error message will go away. And let's also make sure that confirm password matches the password. So to do that, we will give in the one off, and it takes an array. So we want our confirm password to match with password. So when the password is not matching, we will give the error message password should not match. You can see when the passwords are not matching, we will get the error passwords do not match. So you can go ahead and pass some additional validations on the password field. Like let's say you want your password field to have at least one capital letter. So you can do that by giving some regular expression dot matches, and inside here you will pass a regular expression and give this error message. So must have at least one capital letter. Now when we try to submit the form without any capital letter, we will have an error message. Once we enter a capital letter, the error message will go away. Okay, so I'm going to leave the validations here for now. You can add any additional validations as you want. So that's all for this video. If you think the video was helpful, please like the video and consider subscribing to the channel. If you think this video will help anybody else, please share the video. Thank you, and I hope to see you in the next one.